advisors, I'm super excited to introduce you to Elements in Real Life. This is a series of videos we're putting together to help you better understand how to do financial planning with Elements. Each week, Elements advisors will take real client questions and show you how they use the vital signs to provide real advice. So check it out, and of course, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to the show. My name is Eric Rodriguez, CFP, and I'm with Wealth Builders LLC.
And I'm Brandon Galici, CFP, and I'm with Galici Financial.
Great. Well, today we have a fun case to share with you all. And Brandon's going to be walking us through his client situation and the question that they have. And I think what our intention for this call is to, or this show is to show you how we can quickly help clients make decisions and the conversations that we can have around their situation by using the Elements scorecard. So Brandon, why don't you give us a little background on your client and the question they have for us?
Yeah, definitely, Eric. So we are working with my favorite clients, Jim and Pam Halpert. So of course, they're a young family. Household income is $270,000 a year. They're spending about $84,000 per year, and they want to know from Eric and I, they already own a house, can they afford an investment property? So let's pull up their financial scorecard and help them figure out if it makes sense for them to own a different property. So what are the first things that you're looking for, Eric, once we show the scorecard? You've barely had any interaction with this specific one.
Yeah, so good question. So I think the number one thing that I would want to get insight on is what is their statement of financial purpose? Like what are they trying to accomplish with their resources?
Yes, that's a good question. So a lot of it is about family. Jim has just launched his own company, so security is going to be a big factor in there too.
Okay. And kids, no kids?
Two kids.
Two kids. Okay. Young, minors?
Yep. Yeah, both under 10.
Okay. So I think like one of the first things I look at when I look at a scorecard, and again, just to give everybody some insights. So basically the top is risk management, the middle is cash flow based, and then the bottom is essentially what they own, right? Their real estate, their investments, retirement plans, essentially what gives them their financial independence number, which is the total term, that 1.8. So when I first look at this card, one of the first things I always look at for every single client is I look at their total term score, which is 1.8. And the way we get that is you can see here, we take their net worth, divide that by 84. That leaves us to 1.8, right? So 1.8 years, essentially, they can live off their assets if they sold everything tomorrow. So one of the first questions I would ask them is, at what age do they want to make work optional? Because that's really going to help drive the conversation, right? So could they potentially afford, I don't know, we'll afford a rental property? We'll figure that out here in a few minutes. But I guess my first question would be, when do they want to work optional? Because obviously if they get more debt, that potentially might push out their or lower their total term score, which essentially pushes out their financial independence.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in this case, they're typical 60 to 65 because they're so young right now. They're not really even focused on retirement necessarily. Jim loves his job as an entrepreneur at the firm that he started. So he's not necessarily thinking this is exactly when I want to become work optional. It's just more, hey, I've already got some investments inside of my retirement account. So this is just your qualified term right here. So they already have looks like about $100 grand in that category. So he's almost looking to diversify, maybe help him build more wealth by investing in an investment property. That's kind of the thought process for the Halperts here.
Got it. So the first thing I see, and maybe you see this too, is I see, number one, I mean, relative to their age, right? Like a pretty low total term score, right?
Sure.
So I see, low qualified term, which means obviously not a lot in retirement accounts. And then I see a low savings rate of 7. So that would be the first clarification question I had for them is, can we increase that savings rates? Because based upon their income, based upon the taxes that they pay and the amount of savings they have right now, what is that? It's only like 54% of their income that's shown here. So where's the other uh where's the other 46%, right?
Right. And that's something that, Eric, you know this too, of course. This is not
Mhm.
uncommon. In a
Right.
perfect world, these four numbers, of course, add up to 100%. But whether a client's entering
Yeah.
in the data or we're entering the data because they've simply shared it with us, it almost
Yeah.
never adds up to 100%. Sometimes it's above 100. That's generally not great. But more often than not, it doesn't add up quite to 100. So there's a good chance in this particular case, most people have a decent idea of what debts they're paying, right? Don't have
Mm-hmm.
as good of an idea what they're spending. Taxes, those are kind of hit or miss, but then savings too. So I would speculate in this particular case because there
Yeah.
is so much excess, they're probably
Yeah.
saving a little bit more. So that would
Yeah.
be for sure a question that I would be asking them. And then most
Yeah.
likely, once we nail down the savings rate, we can
Yeah.
almost make a good assumption that the remainder is going to go to their spending or their burn rate.
I agree. Yeah. So that first point of clarification is, are you really saving seven, or could you potentially be saving more? Right. So that would be an opportunity to look at their pay stub or their the statement that shows how much they're putting into their retirement accounts and all that.
And Eric,
Does
how would that
Yeah.
change? We're just gonna we're gonna factor out that
Mhm.
not everything adds up to 100%. What would
Yeah.
your if we know that 7% is their true savings rate,
Hmm.
how would that change your advice versus if this were truly 15?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think at this point, then I'm going to dig deeper on confirming all their debts, right, to make sure that this accounts for everything. Because oftentimes people forget that card payment or they forget a student loan or something. So I will just confirm that the debt rate is this low, because this is a pretty low debt rate, right? Which is great. We love to see anything under 30% is okay by me. Anything over 30%, we start to get a little uncomfortable.
Agreed.
But then, yeah, I think to your point, it's confirming tax rate. What's their income again?
270.
Yeah, so at 270 already, right? That tax rate is off, right? So maybe it's getting their tax return and running it through a quick holistic plan or something, and then just you can see in 2 seconds, right, what their actual tax rate is. So that would solve that problem. And yeah, you got to assume the rest of it's going to their spending, going to their burn rate. So once we figure that out, and once we simplified, like, okay, we do have excess cash, your debt rate is lower. This is great. And then the next place that I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at how much liquidity they have, because if they're trying to buy an investment property, you know, they're going to put some money down. Let's just say 20%. So what does that 20% look like? How is that going to impact their liquid term score? Because I definitely want this liquid term score not to get below 0.6. I don't know about you, but I like to see it at least at 0.6.
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere right around that half a year mark. So 0.5, 0.6, right around there. So if we're
Mm-hmm.
looking at their liquid term here, we can see they've got 85,000 in cash. I don't think they have any brokerage accounts right now. So
Mm-hmm.
if we cut that number in half, I mean, we're looking at 43,000 is what Eric, you and I probably would at most recommend that they would have
Mm-hmm.
available for putting down. But then we can't even fully assume that that's the entire 20% down payment because you're
Right.
a homeowner as well. What happens when you buy a property? Is it the
Mm-hmm.
down payment that's the only thing that is going out of your bank
Yeah.
account? Absolutely not. So even if this was 20%, they're
Right.
still going to need to potentially furnish the place depending on what kind of rental, whether it's a long-term rental or whether it's a short-term rental. Of course, closing costs and other associated fees,
Mm-hmm.
anything that they would need to specifically fix up. So they probably have
Yeah.
closer to 30-ish thousand dollars in their particular case to really put down on the property and then save a little bit of a cushion for those other things that we just talked about.
Yes, and that brings me to my next question: is what's the price point, right? Because how much money are they trying to spend, and where are they going to find investment property with this low price point? I'm sure you could, in like rural parts of America, you could definitely find homes for six figures and rental opportunities. But I think just doing some basic math, uh, they could probably afford a rental property of like 150,000, because 20% of that is 30,000 down payment, and then they'd have a buffer of an extra, to call it 10 to 15,000 if they needed to pay closing costs or do some maintenance to the house or something like that. So that that would be a simple way of figuring out how much they can afford. I'm not concerned about their debt rate at all, right? Because the monthly payment's gonna be super low on a, you know, call it $120,000 mortgage. It's not really gonna move the needle on that. So I think I would say yes, go for it, but that's high level without doing some major number crunching. You can afford a $150,000 rental.
Yep. I fully agree with that. So I think if they're looking in a place where that is potentially affordable, I'm originally from West Virginia, and you could potentially find something in that area. I think, to be honest, in this case, I have them living in Austin, Texas. Probably a lot less likely to find that 150. So, but I fully agree with your thought process there too, Eric. If I were to really sum it up, hey, if someone's asking, should they buy a rental property? The main two things, assuming everything else is correct at that point, we're looking at debt rate and we're looking at liquidity would probably be the first two things I'm looking for. And like you said, debt rate, it's very low, as you can see there on the screen, at only 9%. So not worried there, but that liquidity comes into play when it's how much could be accessed to put on that down payment, like you talked about too. So if we were to be super short-winded, liquid term, debt rate, probably the first two that I'm really driving into, assuming everything else is paid.
Boom. I think that covers it. I don't have anything else, but I think that is a very clear example and a simple way to answer a complicated question. Because if I use another planning software for that question, I'm running a whole plan.
And how long is that going to take you? You think, Eric, if you were to run
that's going to take me 2 to 3 hours. That's going to take me 2 to 3 hours because if I'm using another planning software, I got to make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, because if I get one thing wrong, the whole plan's going to be incorrect. This is a much easier way to look at, all right, what do we have today? What are we looking at now? We're not talking about investment performance. We're not talking about, future. We're not trying to predict the future. We're literally just taking what somebody has now, using the ratios that Elements provides, and just be able to give them an insightful answer that's truly accurate to their situation today. So I think that was a great example, and that's a question that you and I get a lot. So great case.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very objective too. It wasn't just Eric or Brandon saying, hey, Jim and Pam, yes, you can afford this number, as if we pulled it out of a hat. We clearly walked through even our thought process behind it. And even for those people that aren't huge numbers people, which, a lot of our clients are going to be that way because they're hiring us, right? They don't have to dive super deep into the numbers to understand these simple ratios and see, right, that makes sense. I do want to make sure that I have money, for the closing costs and to fix up the property. And I still do want to have that security and stability for my own personal emergency fund. Yeah, no, that it just is logical and seems to make sense.
Absolutely. And notice that we did not talk the client. We're not talking the client out of buying investment property. I feel like sometimes that's a misconception with advisors, is they're just trying to talk people out of doing stuff so that they can sell their own products or what have you. We're super objective. Like, no, this could actually make sense, but just know how this is going to impact other parts of your plan. And obviously, year after year, quarter after quarter, we'll keep checking in with you to make sure that you're not too heavy on real estate. But the flip side, if this would have impacted them negatively and they would have had no liquidity and their cash flow shows that they have too much debt or whatever the case may be, we would have probably said, this doesn't make sense for you in this moment in time.
Right. Yeah. If they're saying, hey, I want to buy a $500,000 investment property.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to say, hey, simply that doesn't work. And again, for the same reasons.
Absolutely.
So awesome. Well, Eric, well, this was a ton of fun. I hope this was helpful for you guys as advisors watching this as well. We're probably going to have some sort of link below that you're going to be able to click there. But thanks for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day. And we will see you soon. Talk to you later.
See ya.
So what did you think about that? We'd love to hear your thoughts about how we answered that question. Do you think that you would have answered it differently? Comment below and let us know. Now, if you have a scorecard that you want us to dissect, or a client question you want answered using Elements but aren't sure how, send us the client's one-page plan to cs@getelements.com, and we hope to catch you next time.